Alrighty, so today, we're going to talk about installing coils into a velocity deck, specifically the 35 V2 LE from Voltrove. Fantastic tank. Love this tank. So, quick look, everything looks good. Just gonna get our deck out, removed. Pretty standard practice, but you want to make sure that you have a proper driver for the grub screws. Using a inexpensive, cheap little Allen wrench likely will lead to strip screws and frustration. You can look up getting like a hobby grade driver for really cheap. All Voltrove products is a 1.5 millimeter. Okay, so we've got our screws loosened up. We are ready to install some coils. So we're going to start off with a set of tri-core staggered fused. First order of business, always have a driver to put inside the coils to keep them from getting all twisted up. Now with 3-core stags, I'm not too worried about twist with the legs, but a lot of people wonder, how do you determine where to cut the legs? So what I do is I take a coil, we slide it in there. I can loosen these up a little more. Okay. Take the coil, slide it in nice and tight to the posts. Do not tighten it. Grab your snips. You're going to hold the coil in place, nice and tight to the posts. I'm going to snip that one. Snip that one. Okay, now we're going to take that coil. We're going to remove it. We're going to set it over here. Then we're going to grab our other coil. We're going to do the same exact thing, except with this one, we're going to tighten it up. Always remember, with a proper driver, you don't need to go too crazy with tightening up your screws, okay? Snug and then a little is all you need. Okay, so now we're going to take our snips. We're going to cut the coil, cut the legs. Okay, so we got this coil in. Just gonna take it real quick, manipulate it slightly to get it nice and level. With the 35 LE, you want to be level with the top posts. You don't want to be above them, just pretty much level with them. This is a 4.5 mil build. If we go any higher, we run into issues. So now you take your other coil that you've already cut, slide it in, and you have perfect clearance on the other side from your other coil. You don't have to figure out how to get back in there and cut the legs now that the other one's installed. You just slide it in. Slide it in, snug her up. This is why I do not use a coily tool when installing coils in a velocity deck. If you use this method, it's pointless. It's pointless. You don't have to. Every once in a while you get one that's a little long. Just a touch. So we'll go in and trim that up in a sec. If I can get in there. Okay. Now, coils are set. I like the fitment, I like how they look, I like everything about it. It's set, they might be a touch high. And the way we're going to find that out, so I will show you in just a second. Okay, so we're going to turn our device on. .239. Now we're going to take our top chimney section. We're just going to slowly rotate it until it locks into the pins. Then we're going to hit our fire button again. And now it says 0.12. So that tells me that our coils are too high. Or it just simply didn't read the resistance. So yeah, she's all over the place. I think we're going to be good, but that's how I break in coils or install coils on a velocity deck. It's like that for everything. The only time I ever use a coily tool is for a postless deck or something similar of that nature. The 35 V3s, the 30 V3s, fatalities, Aroma Miser Plus, you know, insert name here of other options that would require a coily. But velocity deck, for me, does not. Our initial break-in wattage here is 40 watts. Nothing crazy. Clearly it's not nearly enough power for these coils. The intent is to get all these hot spots that you see. to pop up so that we can work them out, start working our way up to a little bit higher wattage. This is a time-consuming process. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But spend your money right, get yourself a nice set of coils that are built properly, and you only have to do this once in a very great while, or unless you're bored and want to try something else. Okay, hot spot free. We'll move up in wattage a little bit. Jump up to 95. Still set. We're up to around a 0.2 now, which is in reality this build 7 wrap, 2738 tri-core stag should be around a 0.23. You'll find after you get the initial break-in down, where you're firing them at super low wattage, these next few steps will go relatively quick because it's just little intermittent spot checks, like that little hot spot that kicked up over here on that leg. Now, there are times where you make too quick of a jump or too much of a jump in wattage. If that's the case and you're like, man, I feel like I'm fighting these way too much, turn the wattage back down. Turn the wattage back down somewhere halfway in between where you were prior, which is 95 watts, and where we are currently, which is 180. I'm down to 130, not seeing nearly as many issues with hot spots. Still seeing some, which I expected, but I'm not fighting 100 of them at once. Looks good. Okay, now we're going to come up, we're going to go back up to 180. Okay, we're going to go up just a little bit more just to make sure. 235. You'll notice these are super short clicks of a button. I mean, split-second clicks. We're not holding on it. They're not getting cherry red. They're not glowing white. Just enough to spot check to say, I am good to go, which that point right there, I would say that build is broken, it's done, it's ready for wicking. Pretty colors. Wicking now, the 35 V2 LE. Muji pads, like always. sharp scissors, 4.5mm coil ID. I'm going to cut a couple of strips and just show you a size comparison here of how wide I cut these strips using Muji pads. So if you were to look at a Muji pad, a standard Muji pad, and you cut it right in half, and then you cut that half in half, that is how much I use for a 4.5mm coil, is one of those two strips. So half, and then in half again, and there's your 4.5mm. We're gonna just peel off the outside. Always want nice clean hands. One little step in the middle. Slight little pull. Twist up your end. Now, when you get the cotton run through the coil, you don't want it so tight where you're pulling the coil all over the place. Seeing the coil move slightly, like you can right now, is exactly what you're looking for. Too loose, and it's going to crackle and pop and spit. Too tight, and it's simply not going to wick. It needs to be able to kind of expand inside the coil. So cotton's got to have a little bit of room to breathe. All right, perfect. Now, for cut length and placement of cotton, what I do at this point is I'm going to loosen the deck slightly, create some room for scissors. Okay, so we got a little gap underneath it. Some ceramic tweezers. You'd simply take the leg of cotton and kind of stand it next to the deck. I'll show you guys once I get this set. The scissors under the deck and snip. So all we did was we took this leg of cotton down like this, got our scissors underneath the deck, and snipped it off. It's very hard to do backwards, so one side I do just a touch longer. Reason being is I want just a little bit of extra cotton to kind of sit in the middle. I'll show you what that looks like here in just a second. I'll go through and snip this side too. So you notice one of these is slightly longer than the other. It's just to have a little extra room, really, just a little extra cotton. This tank, because the coils are a bit lower than I would normally set them in my other Voltroves, the cotton has a very fine point where too much is too much, but too little is definitely too little. So this is normally how I set it up. Then we want to fluff this stuff up. I want to fluff her up. For fluffing, I've seen people use all kinds of stuff and all kinds of techniques, and they go all kinds of crazy. For me, fluffing up the cotton works really well if you come at it from underneath your cut. Kind of fluff her up. Then we're going to evaluate, see if we got too much, or it's okay to break it up a little bit too. You don't want to take too much away, you just want to really fluff her up. Okay. With this stuff, some people use scissors. I just dab it off, dab it away. Okay, fluff game. Now, we're gonna place our cotton. I'm gonna get one side set, and then I'm gonna show you what it looks like. Okay, so just like any other Voltrove, what I do is I take my wicks and I sweep them underneath the coil, pack everything in all nice, and try and make a little bit of an airway for air to travel underneath that coil. Nothing is packed in, okay? Nothing is jammed in there, wadded up. It's just sitting in there. This side's a little long. This is another reason why we give it a little bit extra when we're cutting our wicks. A little long is okay. A little short is not okay. It's not okay. I've been asked several times too what this thing is. This is a Delphi pin extractor. There's your model number. I literally took it and I just kind of bent the tip a little bit so that I could use it exactly for what I'm using it for. Sterilized it, of course. Alcohol, because it comes with some type of a grease. But again, I mean, I've had the tools I used to do this for about 4.5 years now. So okay, so there is our 35 V2 LE build, install, and wick. If you got any questions, any comments, anything, hit me up. If you're wondering about wire, 27 gauge cores is Kidney Puncher, 38 gauge on the fuse is Coil Society. All top shelf stuff. Let's go up top for a tube. All right, so I'm running essentially the same build in this, in my own. This tank is just an absolute monster. Performance wise is absolute 10 out of 10. Flavor wise is absolutely stellar, 9 out of 10. Fit, form, function is just incredible. Top cap is a quarter turn, which I love. There's no threading to deal with. You just push down, twist it, and it's off. JFC functions 100% flawlessly. You can take the cap off of this to fill it, lock your JFC, and come back in 10 minutes, and it's not going to be flooded. It's not going to leak. So if you're on the fence about grabbing one on and you have the opportunity, I would highly suggest it, because they are excellent. Excellent, excellent. They look fantastic in stainless. They look fantastic in polished stainless and black. So get you some.